And so anyway, I'm here. We also have Gary Myers is here. He'll be monitoring the chat today. So this session is about the offerings that Vernier has for the kind of the remote classroom. And so we want to look at a set of our remote resources that we have. And so we're going to go and take a look at that real quick here. So what I want to do is I want to share my screen here, and let me go to this out of the way. Okay. Let me share. Okay. I'm not sure I have the right desktop there. What are you seeing there, Gary?
I'm seeing a data table. I'm seeing looks like.
Okay. Yeah, I have a new monitor here, and it messed me up a little bit. So let me go back here.
Yeah, you've got basically a lab.
Do a new share and go to desktop 1.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, and then we move that piece out of the way here. So what we're looking at right now is just the Vernier website, and I want to do explore remote solutions. And so what you're seeing is the section of the website that has this information. And I'm going to scroll down here, and you'll see that it's kind of broken up by different areas here. And so I'm going to do the high school area. And we'll scroll down here. There are a variety of things that are available here. We did a webinar about this. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing a session about the Graphical Analysis Pro software. I know there are pivot sessions going on. I think all 6 times. We'll be doing a video analysis one too. But I'm going down here to the analyze experimental data at home. So the idea here is that we knew that we were in a situation where people, be doing virtually, and maybe the students really need to be able to analyze real data. But if you're not in class or you're not in school, maybe they cannot do that. And so that's the reason that we've done this. And so what I want to do is I will just do view the free library here. And let me go here. And so the library has files that we've put up that has the lab data. It has the lab file itself, and so it contains the actual instructions that the students would follow. And in some cases, there may be a video that goes along with it. It kind of introduces the lab. So let's take a look at this. And it's broken up by different disciplines. And so right now, I'm on a tab that is for biology. And so you can see basically the way it works is they list the different books from which the data came from and when the lab came from. And so you can scroll down and see, all the different books that would be related to biology in this case. And so it lists the book, it lists the lab, it lists the software that the data were collected in that you would need to be able to analyze the data. Most of them you'll find is in our Graphical Analysis app, and that's because that app is free. You can go to vernier.com and you can download that. So your students could have that app, and the idea is that they can open this file to be able to do that. So we've got the biology, of course there's chemistry and physics and elementary, middle, and kind of physical science. So some of the lower grades things there are available. Now, what I want to do is I want to go here and click and see, if we go to, let me just pick one. I want to do the cell respiration, and we'll see what this looks like here. So what would happen is if I click on it, it's going to send you to a Google Drive. And at that point, you can download this. And so if I actually went and said I wanted to download, I can go here and then download that file. Now, I've actually already downloaded it for this particular one. And so once you've downloaded it, then we can go and we can open that up. And so that's what's going on there. And what happens is you're downloading both the data again and the lab here. So let me do this. I would like to do a new share here and make sure that I've got that running. And let me do new share, and I want to open up graphical analysis. And so at this point, what you're seeing is the graphical analysis app. And so the we've downloaded the data, and so what we need to do is take a look at what the lab's about. And so the one I looked at was the cell respiration with using the CO2 sensor and the O2 sensor. So it's using two sensors together. And the idea is that the students, once they have this data, they can go through and answer the questions and do the analysis and whatnot that's required. So let me do that. I'll come here. I'm going to choose the file. Now I've actually put it on my desktop already. And so I think it's under that tab there. And let me open up the .ambl means that it is a graphical analysis file. And so when we open this up, what you're seeing there is the data. This particular file just opens up straight up to the data table. It does not have the graph. Some of them will open to a graph. It just kind of is the default way it's set up. And so what we need to do is to go through the analysis of this. And so I'm going to show you how you would go and say, create the graph, do the analysis that's here. So what you'll see is there's multiple runs. And so we've got germinating peas at 22 degrees C, non-germinating peas, and germinating peas that were germinating a little bit cooler temperature there. And so I'm going to come up here to the upper right there, and I want to create a graph. And so I've created the graph, and by default, this one is going to, it's got the oxygen sensor and parts per million there. And I might want to look at actually two graphs for this one. And so I'm going to come up here and I'll actually put in a second graph. And you can pick and choose what's on the each graph by simply clicking on the label of the axis and choosing which data set, which run of data that you want there. And what I'd like to do is have both the oxygen graphs and the CO2 graphs both have both runs, so we can do the comparison of the two runs that way. So the upper one actually already has them there. So we can see we have the O2 there, and it's got the germinating one at 22. It's got the germinating at 12. So that one's there. The bottom one, right now, it just has one of the CO2s there. So I want to come here and make sure that I have that one too. Let me turn off this data set for some reason it comes up there. And then this one's off scale, so I'm going to come here and auto scale it. So that's zoomed to the data. So it was there, but the scaling was odd because it actually had the fourth run didn't have any data in it. So it caused it to look a little bit odd there. So at this point, the students are asked to look at the data and to find the rate of respiration. And to do this, they're going to be doing a curve fit. And so what we can do is we can see that, the oxygen is going down, the CO2 is going up. And so in this situation, they have the germinating peas are just inside a closed container with the CO2 sensor there. And so I'm going to do this. I'll start with the oxygen one here. And well, I'll tell you what, first let me just look at the examine function here. Notice that if I just move along the graph, I can examine the individual values from the graph there. And so I can just move along and do that. And fairly recently they had it so if the data are linked together like this, that when you move the top graph, it moves on the bottom graph too. So that was a new addition to the software. Now let me delete that piece here. And under this little icon is the graph tools. And if I go there, it gives me the the tools that are available for the data analysis. And so when the students are looking at the lab itself, they would be able to go to the tool they need. And so for this one, I want to say apply a curve fit. And it's defaulting to linear, which in this case is what we would want. And so if I do apply, what you'll find is that it gives me the slope. So in this case, it would be the decrease in oxygen concentration as a function of time. And it's going to be in parts per million per second. So it gives you that slope there, and then you can scroll down and see what it is for the other run there. Now, right now I'm not sure which one is which. So one of the things I should do is I can go back over here, and if I turn on a graph legend, this will allow me to know which run is which. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that. So the one that's the kind of pinky red color is the 22. And we see that it has a steeper slope. And so it's warmer, the P's were warmer than the other ones. And so they seem to be respiring at a higher rate, at least from the oxygen. So we can do the same thing down on the CO2. So likewise, I'll go down to that graph because you end up analyzing the graphs independently of each other. So, so I'll come here, apply curve fit, and let's do that one. Maybe I also want to put a graph legend there too. So we can see those two. This time they're the same color, which is a little bit odd there, but one's, well, they're slightly different. But we can see that. And so that's what the lab is about. So they're looking at the different germination rates there. So Gary, do we have some questions? I've got my chat covered over there. I can't see it.
We do not. No questions.
What I'd like to do is I want to do another one here in a second, and we'll take a look at a different data set. So let me do that. What I want to do is I'm going to switch over to a chemistry one. And in particular, I want to do a titration. Because thinking about where we are right now in terms of students being able to collect data themselves, there are certain things they might be able to do at home, but a titration would definitely be one that they couldn't do. So having that titration data would be a good thing there. So let me do this. I'm going to come up here, and I will I'll just say new experiment. It's going to ask me if I want to save this. I'll say don't save. And I am going to choose a new file to open. And so I have, oops, I'll say don't save. I want to go to, I've already downloaded the file. So this is one that I pre-downloaded from the experiment file there. And I'll come here and open up that data set. And so if you've taught chemistry or had chemistry, you might recognize this as the titration curve. Now, the analysis on this one can be a little bit more complicated. So the idea is they want to go in and find the equivalence point, of an acid-base titration. And so I'll show you the different ways that you can do this. So we've got the curve there, and so when we were down in that lower left-hand corner and we saw the different tools, one of the tools we do this is if I turn on the tangent line, if I do this, when I do that examine function by just clicking on the graph somewhere, in addition to it telling me, what in this case, the volumes are and the pH, it's also giving me the slope of the tangent line. And so it's the how rapidly is that sensor value changing. So we know for a titration, the equivalence point is going to be reached when the pH as a function of volume is changing the most rapidly. So that one drop changes the pH dramatically. And so we can come here and simply scroll across if we want to, and be able to come in and find the point at which, so got 7.61 is the pH at 13.8 milliliters, and I go up and it's at 8.17. So it's 14. And now the slope starts to decrease. So it appears to me that at a volume of 9.25 milliliters down at the bottom there, that is going to be the equivalence point for this particular experiment using this method. Now, the lab says you can do a couple other methods, and one would be having the software calculate the first derivative, so we'll do that one. And then we can go and do the second derivative. So let's take a look at what this is, how you would do that. So let me turn off the examine function there. And so to do the calculations, I'm going to come over here to pH, and I'll click there. And I'm going to do add calculated column. And so what this does is it uses the data you have, and you can do various calculations with it. I will just call this first, just call it first dare. So there'd be the first derivative, and you go here and say insert expression, and these are the equations that are available currently in graphical analysis for students to be able to analyze the data. So there are a variety of different things that you might be doing with it, but the one we want is just the first derivative. And so I'm going to come here and click, and the nice part about this one is the default is it's doing pH as a function of volume, which is what we want. And I will do apply. And so with that one, we'll end up getting, it created another column here that is the first derivative. Now, suppose that what we would like to do is we want to see that graph. So I'm going to go up to the upper right, and this is the view options. This is where I went before on the last one to actually create the graph in the first place. And I will have it do 2 graphs. And so when it opens up the second graph, it doesn't necessarily know what you want to do. For this one, what I want is I want to do the first derivative, and it's still data set 1. I think data set 2 is actually empty there. So we can come here, and if I zoom, we end up with that. So if I do that examine function, just like I did before, I can come over here and we can scroll over, and you'll notice that on the first derivative there, I'm getting at the same value as the peak. Of course, there's nothing magical about that because the tangent line was the first derivative to start with. So it was calculating that as we went along. So I would expect that those two would be right on top of each other there. Now, let's do the next one. And the next one, it would like for you to do the second derivative. And we do it basically the same way. We can go back to here and do calculated column. And I'll just call this, oops, there. And conveniently, it's just right there. So I can go there and apply. And now, just like I did before, we can come in here and I can do a third graph if I want to. And then we can, let's see, data set 1, second derivative there. Now, it's kind of jumbled up here a little bit. Now, what's happened is the default for these graphs for this particular file is that it's including the data points and it's including a line. And so that's why the actual lines on the graph appear to be fairly large. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to come up and go to my graph tools and I'm just do options there, and I'm just going to have it just do lines, just to kind of make it a little bit clearer for our what we're looking at there. Oops, make sure I go to the right spot. Options, lines, there we go. And then if I do the same thing here and go edit graph options, lines, and then I need to auto scale that so that, and so we're looking at the change of that. So if we come and if I do the examine function like I did before, I can scoot along and we get there. So what we're looking for here be where the, the second derivative crosses crosses the y-axis. And so we can, but that's kind of the more advanced version of that. And it's in the lab there. It sets all that out. So Gary, there's some questions at this point?
There are not questions. We have about 7 or 8 minutes left of the session. So,
Okay.
Feel free to take questions. I don't know if people can unmute themselves or not in this setup, but feel free to just, there's only 7 or 8 people here, so feel free to pop in if you have questions.
You can.
Oh, and one says, I would love to see middle level data set.
Okay.
I'd love to see a middle level from Lisa.
Okay, so let me run and grab a middle level
also.
data set.
All
Easy
right.
for me to say. Let's see here. So let me go here and let me go back to sharing that desktop. And so let me go and pull up, oops, went all the way back to where I started. And let's see. It'll still get me to the same spot. Just thinking about it. And there is actually a little video there that kind of walks you through how to get to this and how to use it there. So let me go to a middle level one. How about, let's see here. Just trying to think which is a good one here. How about get a grip? So at this point, I'm actually going to have to download it because I didn't have this one there already. So it's basically what it does is it downloads it as a zip file. And then I can, once I've done that one, I can save it there. So it's putting on my desktop. And then I'll be able to open it up here in just a second. So let me go back to my Graphical Analysis app here. Open that one back up. And so I want to open. No, I don't want to save changes to that one. And I need to go to get a grip and open this one up. And so for this lab, what they're looking at is grip strength. And so they're using a gas pressure sensor with a bulb attached. And I don't happen to have one sitting right here. But so they were comparing the grip strength with right and left hand over time. So the idea is the person was squeezing as hard as they could, and then with the right hand, left hand, to see which one may be fatigued faster. And this one, it has the students, there are a couple of ways to do it. One, they can just come and say, get the values. I think the way it's written, it has them do this. It says, well, let's get the average grip strength. Hard to talk and swipe at the same time. So what I'm doing is highlighting a region of that graph, and the lab asked them to find what was the average value of your right and left hand for the first 5 seconds. And so if I go here and do statistics, then I can look at the mean value for both the right and left hand. And in fact, maybe I want to insert an annotation there. No, not an annotation. I wanted to do a legend. Get it right here. So we do graph legend there. So there we are. So data set 1 and 2. And then, oh, actually, it's two different data sets here. So the right hand and the left hand, it's actually 2 runs that we're displaying here. And then, so we could do that, the first 5 seconds, and then I'm coming down here to the last 5 seconds, and I will do statistics down there. And in fact, I didn't mean to get rid of the first statistics. So let me go back and reinsert that. So at this point, we could compare and say, well, what happened? You know, what is the, say the average strength for that region for your left hand, and you could compare those two. And it's done in pressure because they're using the gas pressure sensor. But you see that it does drop. It drops for both. And so they can compare that. And so that's what that data set is about. So there are over 300 different labs for the, for the different disciplines. And it's not all the labs in all the books. Some of them, we just decided the kind of the way the lab was done, it was not, it didn't lend itself to kind of being able to use it remotely all that well. And so we didn't put it in there, but it's a lot of them are there. And so we can do that one. Now, while I'm here, I know, do you have any other questions there, Gary?
No, we had some question about some other subjects, and I answered that just in the chat. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So the thing to do is to go and peruse and see what's there. You'll see some of them are for the Logger Pro software, but again, most of them are graphical analysis. Graphical analysis is free. And so you just go to our website and you can follow the software link to that and download it. It's available for 5 platforms. So right now I'm using it on my Mac, but I could be using it on my cell phone, an Android tablet, a PC, Chromebooks. It works just fine on Chromebooks. And so that's why we did it, because you've got this app that will go across all of those platforms. And then you have the data files, and so it's kind of you'll be able to go out and do this. Now I'm actually using kind of I'm going to set you up for tomorrow if you want to come to this. I'm using a newer version of this called Graphical Analysis Pro, and it has some new features in it. One of the things that happens, you'll notice it says video. It has the ability to sync video and data to it. I don't have a video with this one, but if I did, I could have had it there. It also has, it has the ability to replay. Now I can do this one. I could come here and say, oh, I actually want to replay the data set. And maybe I want to replay the data set at 3 times real speed. And so I hit return there and here that one. And then hit replay. There we go. So it's replaying. I guess it's only replaying one of them here. Oh, I guess if I do 2, it'll do both of them there. Oh, I have it set for data set 1 right there. So that's one of the features that's there. And then another feature that's there that is really interesting is a function, what's called data sharing. And we'll be doing this tomorrow, but on this one, what it allows you to do is if I were collecting data in real time, it would be able to broadcast it over the internet to the students running their own device. I ran a methods course the other night at a university where middle school methods, and so they were all prospective teachers, and we did this. We did an interactive lab where I was collecting data where I am, and they were receiving the data where they were. They could interact with the data. I had them draw predictions on their screens, and then we did the data collection. And so that is a really powerful new feature. So we'll be talking about the Graphical Analysis Pro tomorrow when we do that session. So other questions?
We're right up against the clock time.
There we go. So anyway, sorry for being a late start there. We had, again, our login problems there. But we would encourage you to come back. We've got the graphical analysis probe, and then we have the Vernier video analysis session also. We'll be doing that too. Anyway, thanks for coming, and we hope to see you again in another one of these.
Whoa. Just looking out my window, leaves are blowing sideways across the front of my window here.
Yep. I'm going to end the meeting, so it'll go
All right.
away, and then we can hook back up in a second. So.
Sounds good. Take care.